It is 5 o'clock, and I'm going to call a special meeting to order. First of all, on 1.03, we're going to go through the roll call. Vice President Meno.
Present.
Director Farah.
Here.
Director Clark.
Present.
And obviously I'm here. I'd like to now ask Vice President Meno to say the pledge, and if the audience would please join us and rise.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all of you. This is a meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meeting Act. This is a public interview to fill a board vacancy for Director District Number 2. Once interviews are complete, the board will recess for an executive session to further discuss the candidates' qualifications, and then the board will reconvene to deliver publicly and announce the successful candidate. We want to thank all of you who have come to this meeting and those who are viewing live stream, and a special welcome to our younger guests. I'd like to see you participating in our audience. So that's terrific. I'd now like to call on Director Clark to read the land acknowledgements. Director Clark.
We acknowledge we are gathered upon the ancestral lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe, who historically lived throughout the area between the Cascade Mountains and Puget Sound.
Thank you, Director Clark. Just a little housekeeping. This is a public interview for all our applicants who have bravely stepped forward to serve this school district. And I hope, and I hope I don't have to say this again, which we've had to do in meetings, and I don't like to be the bad guy here, but we want to give everybody a equal treatment. And I know you might want to respond with yay or clapping or whatever, or nay, or whatever, but we want to give everybody absolute equal treatment, so I'd appreciate if we just have no response, we give everybody our undivided attention, and we move on to the next candidate. Another thing that has come up, too, is I want to go over on the website. We put out a pretty specific, detailed outline of how we were going to do this. We've had some calls to the state and stuff, trying to get information about will the candidate be sworn in tonight, and on. But I'm going to go over what the law is and what we're going to do. And you already know this, but the board announces the vacancy on Friday, June 24th, 2022. The deadline to apply, Monday, August 22nd, 2022, 5 p.m. That was extended. On 8/17, applications reviewed on Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. Public interview selection, we first had Wednesday, August 31st, 2022. However, we were trying to make it applicable to all candidates and equal. So we had an in-person board meeting and had to change that to 9/1, which is tonight. All that was posted on our website. The candidate will be sworn in Wednesday, September 14th, 2022, and all of that's been on our website so everybody can see. And that's in compliance with RCW 28A.343.370. That's a statutory provision, so just want to do some homework there. And now it takes us to 2.0, our interviews for District Director or District 2 Director vacancies. And I'd like to call on Ms. Zantella to bring in our first candidate.
Good evening, President Hamada, members of the board, and Superintendent Vela. I'd like to introduce you to Director District Candidate Number 1, Mr. Andy Carter.
Welcome, Andy. Glad to see you, and thank you so much for stepping up. It's a big responsibility, and we really appreciate it. I'm going to start out and ask the first question, and then we're just going to kind of go down the row here. And I'd like you to tell me a little bit about yourself and why you want to be a board member.
Okay. I grew up in the Renton area of Talbot Hill, graduated from Lindbergh High School many years ago, went to college out in Colorado and came back, and I developed roots back in the area. So I'm a current parent of 2 kids within the Kent School District, my daughter who attends elementary school, and my son who is an incoming middle school student. What was this? President,
Sure.
what was the second part of that question? My apologies.
Absolutely. You know, I understand. Totally. I have no problem repeating. And why would you, in particular, want to be a board member?
I want to be a board member. One is to help represent, the communication to the community. I feel that you guys make a lot of strong decisions that directly affect my children. And I think by me personally being let me take a step back. My background isn't necessarily education at all. So I'm out in more of a sales management, finance is my background, along with being a parent. And with my kids are a little bit special. They both require IEPs. And I think by joining the current board, I'd give a different perspective, both by being a person out in the business industry, but along with a current parent with 2 students enrolled at different levels that also require that little bit extra that many of the other students need to.
All right. Second question. What are your experiences in the public school K-12 system as either an employee, parent, or volunteer?
Okay, so have never been an employee. I have been a volunteer through the elementary school as part of the Watchdog program, where I helped, and I guess as part of that program, we would do different things, whether it's participating in PE functions, hanging out at recess, just trying to be a positive influence to the different students. And also, taking that time to read one-on-one with kindergartners and people that are just learning. Going back into some of that background, even before I had kids, I would participate at different functions. My mother, who was a retired Kent School District teacher in the elementary level, we would go and we would help her with different events also and volunteer in her classroom.
Okay, third question. How would your lived and professional experience impact and inform your approach to building a healthy and collaborative learning community as a board member in service of students, their families, and staff?
I believe that comes down to communication. Mm-hmm. A lot of that is just being open to hearing and having different opinions and being able to see different perspectives. Everybody lives life a little differently. I might live a little different than yourself, and so on. And it shouldn't be expected that everything is exactly the same, and everybody would have different needs. So part of if I became a board member, would I listen to the community and help bring that information back to the board team so we can make sure we're best serving the kids in the Kent School District.
Okay. What would you consider to be the challenges in public education today, and how would you prioritize these challenges?
Well, the challenges in public education is, a lot of it is what we saw coming out of the COVID, is attendance. It's, are people here? How do we know? We have to forecast. We have to develop budgets based off of what we expect, but we may not have that anymore. You have many parents, I don't personally know, but I've heard, are opting for homeschool as opposed to the public education. Me personally, that was never really an option. I believe in public education. I went through it. My kids are going to go through it. And I think there's a lot to be said, both from the educational standpoint and the social adaptation you get with the mix of students.
All right, Andy. The Kent School District is focused on closing the achievement gap that exists between student groups, you know, along special ed, ESL, income, and race, and probably some other things. What are your thoughts and ideas on addressing the gaps?
What do you mean by closing the gap? You mean by having less separate entities and
No.
merging them as one?
Okay, sorry. I guess I can't clarify.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, could you restate the question?
Sure. The Kent School District is focused on closing the achievement gap that exists between student groups. What are your thoughts and ideas on addressing the gaps?
I think the goal should always be to how to figure out how to excel. So if we had a particular area that was falling behind where they should be, what can we do, as a district to help bring everybody to a higher level? I mean, ideally, we want our students to achieve. We don't want to take the ones that are achieving and bring them down.
The next question, why do you think it's important to address equity and inclusion issues as a board member? And what are some ways you have or might do that?
Well, when it comes to equity and inclusion, I mean, being here in Kent, living, being a part of the community, you see there's a lot of diversity. And I think it's our job as representing from the school level to help mold it together. That's probably not, I think ideally what we want to do is we want to make everything a better place. And what I personally could do is when I recognize those opportunities, it's to bring them to my colleagues and to the superintendent so we can take fully advantage of those for all of our students here in the district.
Okay, question number 7. What aspects of racial equity and equity in education do you think you have to learn more about, and how would you go about doing it?
A lot of it would be a learning process to figure out what the different issues are currently within the school. I can name issues that involve my kids directly, but I'm not privy to all the information, as a whole. What I would like to do is I would like to make sure we're addressing issues as they arise to make sure we're going forward, to make sure we're in advancement. We don't want to take steps backwards. I believe that we want to just try to do this to make it a better place.
What interests or personal qualities will you bring to this position, and how will they enrich the current board?
Well, I can tell you and I'm sure many of you guys are parents or were parents, or I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe you have kids in school, maybe you don't. I can tell you as a parent from 2 kids that are younger that are going to develop here within the Kent School District, as a stepping stone into the rest of their life, what I can do is to help share, these different opportunities as I see them come up. What I'll do here as a board is to help collaborate. And I'm a big believer in teamwork. I'm not going to if I bring an idea to the table for whatever topic, I'm not going to say, hey, it's my way or the highway. I look for input. In fact, I value input. I want to know what my colleagues think. I want to make sure we're doing the best job we can for our kids.
So Andy, we're on to question number 9, and that is, what is your approach to dealing with discussions about potentially difficult topics such as race, religion, politics, or sexual orientation? And please provide a specific example.
Well, my opinion is we want to have facts. I'm a big data person. I want to know. I don't want to make decisions based off of one person's opinion. And I believe having all the information available is what I would need to make a decision. trying to think of an example that wouldn't become controversial. If there, let's say there's a situation where where somebody made a racial remark to a student. What I would want to know is I'd want to figure out what the background information was on there. If it was a teacher in a school building, what did the principal do? And a lot of that information will come directly from Superintendent Vela as part of the district's investigation before I made a decision. I don't want to say I never want to say anybody's lying, I guess is what I want to say. I want to get all the facts and make an intelligent and informed decision.
How would you help board members connect with individuals and organizations to benefit the district's students?
I'd take y'all to a Rotary meeting. So I'm on the Kent Rotary. I've seen you guys, I know you guys participate in some events. And I mean, a lot of it is just, it's getting people out there, shaking hands and introducing people and letting people know what's going on. I can tell you over the course of my professional career, I spent 16, 17 years in a situation where I worked a lot of hours, where trying to apply for school board wasn't an option. In fact, attending events in my kid's school was more challenging. So I do respect a lot of what people have to do out in the community in terms of what they do for their kids. So again, going back is, I've had a lot of people introduce me to people, and over the last couple of years, I've met a lot of great people that do a lot of good for this community, and I would definitely do the same for my colleagues.
All right. Describe a time when you needed to work collaboratively with someone that did not share the same ideas as you. Describe the situation, the action you took, and the outcome, and what you learned from.
Real specific. Mm-hmm. Let's see. So I can tell you, working in, a lot of my background is sales management, working with other people like in the automotive industry, and a lot of decisions were made among managers. And as you can imagine, sometimes when it comes to like aggressive salespeople, you're gonna have people that argue over commissions, right? So that's something I think that comes to mind. And part of how managers are paid is we get paid based off of our salespeople, right? So when there's a commission battle, it would directly affect us too. So, a lot of it, what it comes down to is it's going back to additional reviewing the actual policies of the corporation. And it's sitting down with my colleague at the same level before we go down to our subordinates and reviewing this and reading how this policy goes. And sometimes people are happy, sometimes they're not, but the rule of the law is it's what's written here on paper is what has to be followed when there's no agreement in place. Now, sometimes people are upset, and that's kind of the hard part, right? We're all gonna make decisions that aren't gonna make everybody happy. The key is, are we gonna be consistent when we make these decisions? And are we doing it for the greater good?
Okay. Define what you consider to be the role of a board member within the community.
I think the role of a board member within the community is to kind of be that middle ground between the district and the community. I think it's our job to go out and as positive role models for the district and help our community members. I was going to say parents, but it's not just parents. There's people that don't have kids within the district, and they count too. So it's getting out there and it's giving that positive message. It's being there to give reassurance. If somebody has issues, obviously we're not decision makers for the school district. That's what the superintendent and his team does. But it's our job is to help communicate and to help be that middle ground.
All right, Andy, we're on to question number 13. Upon receiving notice for your interview, you were asked to review policy 1610, conflict of interest, board and superintendent, board policy 1002, code of ethics, board policy 1005, the key functions of the board of directors, board resolution 1600, revised protocol guidelines, the RCW 42.0 23.030, interest in contracts, prohibited exceptions, and RCW 422307, prohibitive acts. That's a mouthful. Do you foresee a conflict based on your advance review that would prevent you from serving in this role?
I have reviewed all those documents as requested, and there is no conflict.
The next question, describe the ideal relationship between the school board and the superintendent.
Wow, these are good questions. So the ideal relationship I would feel is open communication. I think it should go, communication's a two-way street. It's not, I understand the board's job is to, to supervise, and maybe supervise is not the right word, but to, evaluate the superintendent. I don't think it's the board's job to tell him how to do his job. I think needs to be open communication, and there should be an open line of communication, and everybody should treat each other. I like to use the word coworkers. I've worked in plenty of environments where you can go in and you can walk into the owner's office or the CEO of the company, and he'll have a chat, even as an entry-level person. But I also respect that people are busy and they have jobs. So I don't know, sorry I kind of ran on a little bit on that. So I guess ideally there should be open communication with the board and the superintendent, timely responses to phone calls, emails, or whatever the preferred method of communication is. And I don't think there's always going to be agreements, but I think there should always be conversation.
Okay. What is your understanding of a typical school district funding model, and how would you enhance it?
The funding model, which I do not have a lot of experience with a typical school district funding model. I could have experience with, in terms of private business, but so my guess would be when it came to this, which granted, if I was added to the board, I would have some research I would continue to do to help make sure, to get me up to speed to where I would need to be. But a lot of the money would come from the government, and along with levies and bonds would come from your property taxes.
How would you enhance it?
I would, as part of the process of, when we approve items, I would go through it and I would look and see, is there any areas of opportunity? And areas of opportunity could be, are we spending in the wrong spots? I can, give that feedback based off of what my perspective would be on that particular issue. Maybe there's an area where we can enhance, to help one of our groups that we want to help enhance. And maybe that money's better well spent. Again, as being part of the team, I would definitely want to give input in case one of my team members had a different point of view. And ideally, when you have a big collaboration, you'll have success.
Board meetings occur on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month, with work sessions on alternate Wednesdays. Additionally, the board meets with the superintendent for regular board superintendent's governance team meetings, which may require meetings on additional evenings. There are also book studies, research, and community events, including graduations throughout the year. Is there anything that would prevent you from participating in these meetings and activities, and/or what type of supports would you need to be successful in that role?
Currently, I would be able to, make that happen. In the event there was a short notice meeting, it may become challenging, but anything that we could put on the schedule, and even if anything additional came up, I have room for flexibility. So ultimately my goal when I made the decision to apply was to be present at all meetings and, to fulfill my duties as a board member.
Okay, it is 5:24. I'm sure you have a little more time here. Who is keeping time? How many minutes does he have left? Do we have it?
It's in here.
Yeah,
so
we got a few
we have until 5:40.
5:40.
We're good.
Okay,
One more question.
go ahead, Ms. Centella.
President Hamada, thank you. So it seems as though you've completed your round of questions.
No, we have one more.
You
You have,
one
oh, you
more.
have one more. Okay.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us, Andy?
I guess I would, let's see. Sorry, I'll apologize for my nervousness. This is new for me, so I'm just getting warmed up, so I wish we were still going. I guess what I'd like to say is I believe in the Kent School District. My kids go here. We're not looking to change that. I'm serious about, becoming a board member. And I took a lot of thought process before I actually applied, discussing with family, friends, people in the community. So I hope you select me to join your team, and I appreciate your guys' time today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
In the audience know what we're going to do. We have scheduled our next person at 5:45, so it's 5:26, so there's going to be a gap here. So, go stretch your legs, have a drink of water.
Good evening, President Hamada, members of the board, and Superintendent Vela. I'd like to introduce you to candidate number 2, Ms. Megan Margell.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're very glad you stepped up for service and have shown an interest, and we're very glad to have you here.
Thank you.
We're going to kind of do a round of questions, Megan, and I'm going to start that round off. And first of all, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be a board member.
Madam President, in fairness, as we have to other candidates, the candidate has the right to ask a repeat of the question.
Okay.
Thank you. Again, my name is Megan Margell, and I am interested in being a member of the board because I want to give back to the community that gave so much to me. I am a proud graduate of Kent Ridge and married, also a proud Kent Ridge graduate, and we are excited to have our eldest, my daughter, is starting as a freshman at Kent Ridge this year. I also have a son who is in 6th grade at Ridgewood and is excited to become a Jaguar next school year after his sister told him how great Northwood has been. So with a great start, I was able to do a lot with my education. I'm a graduate of the University of Washington with my degrees in political science, and I have been working in the financial industry now for almost 30 years. And I just recently went back to school and got my Master's of Business Administration in the executive program at the University of Washington Foster School of Business. All of that came because of where I started. And if I can give back to the community that while everybody's path is a little different, what it looks like, I want to make sure that all of our students have doors wide open to them and that they have the same opportunities to be able to make those choices and where they take their careers and they take their education.
Thank you. Second question, what are your experiences in the public school K-12 system as either an employee, parent, and or volunteer?
Sure. Well, my experience of volunteering starts way back when I started dating my husband. His mom is a 30-year retiree of Kent School District, and I started out volunteering in the classroom with her before I even had kids. And so I would go in and help out with the classroom, and then cutting out rainbows and snowman after school for a kindergarten teacher and all that they do. Once my husband and I decided where we wanted to put our roots down, we continued to want to specifically choose Kent School District, and so we chose our home now within District 2 of Kent School District, and we have been part of the school district in volunteering since my daughter started kindergarten at Ridgewood. I was elected and I was on the PTA board for 2 years as the PTA treasurer. We have a very active PTA, and also something that I was very proud of is also the partnership that we had with some of the other schools that maybe had a little less active to try to bolster their PTA within their school. We continued to, both my husband and I, volunteer within the classroom anywhere that we could. Anything from reading to kids to being able to help correct papers or, again, still cutting out the snowmen. Whatever it looks like, we're there to be able to help. Volunteering for field trips. I was really excited to just last year be able to go with Mr. Gordon and his amazing musical class that he does and go to their competition that they had at Kentwood and be able to be part of that and see just all the hard work that those students put in. So as much as we can, we really try to be involved. The school is such the heart of the community, and so personally, I think it's a loss if you're not part of that.
Okay, how would your lived and professional experience impact and inform your approach to building a healthy and collaborative learning community as a board member in service of students, their families, and staff?
And I'm sorry, could you repeat that just one more time?
Okay? How would you, with your lived and professional experience, impact and inform your approach to building a healthy and collaborative learning community as a board member in service of students and their families and staff?
So I look to a lot of the things I've learned in my career, and starting out in finance, I was a teller, and worked my way up to where I am today. And you do that, and I see this, well, of course, private industry is different than schools. You're still dealing with limited resources, namely time and money. And anytime that you have limited resources, you must be able to work with others to collaborate, and I wouldn't say it's just being able to come to somewhere in the middle, but sometimes hopefully coming to somewhere better, right? You take the best that everybody has to give, and you get those voices. And by working together, coming up with an even better solution than you might have come up with just yourself. And so that's what I've been able to do in my career, because to be able to move my group together, which is really moving my entire company together, and in the end, doing what's best by my membership, we have to be able to not only hear but invite as many voices to the table to be able to really get an answer that is better and bigger than yourself, and work with many different people to be able to bring those voices in, and also being humble enough to know that you don't have it all. And that's what I bring to this, is a quest for learning, a quest for questioning, and I ask a lot of questions, but also being humble enough and willing enough to know that there's a lot of really good ideas out there, and being able to listen to those and want to hear those.
What would you consider to be the challenges in public education today, and how would you prioritize these challenges?
Well, I think, again, we go back to resources, right? And limited resources. And I think one of the biggest ones that we continue to feel is the squeeze of funding. We have less and less coming in from federal and state to meet the needs that are a more demanding population that we have. And so being able to find the way to be able to still produce positive results for our students, which we owe them, and be able to do that with finances that feel ever more limited. And how would I prioritize those? That there's a lot of competing priorities. And if I was here to say that I have all the answers right now, you shouldn't pick me, because I don't think I have all the answers today, but I do say that I have a really good question in mind and heart to be able to find out all that. I do think that we've done a good job of prioritizing equity, excellence, and community, and I want to make sure that the voices of all the different aspects of Kent School District are heard, and that we continue to be able to bring up all parts of our community. I think of privilege and the ability that we have. There is a privilege of being able to be on a board and be able to make these big decisions that impact so many people's lives. And privilege is being able to be educated to be able to apply for jobs and be able to do that in a way that you know you're successful. And I want to be able to make sure that we're able to give that to all aspects of our community. So I'd really look at going back to what are our main priorities and funding those first.
All right, Megan, we're on to question 5. The Kent School District is focused on closing the achievement gap that exists between student groups, such as special ed, ESL, income, and race. What are your thoughts and ideas on addressing the gaps?
The first thing I would say is there's not just one answer, because if there was just one really easy answer, I think we would have chosen that a long time ago, right? It's not something that you can just, have that one silver bullet. But one of the first things I would think about is access. And do we have access equally amongst all of our schools and all of our community to be able to access the resources that are available to them? I think about after-school programs. Does everybody have the same access within our district? And I don't think that we all do. Do we have something as simple as busing? I mean, it sounds simple. Believe me, I know it's not simple. My father-in-law is a retired school bus driver of Kent School District. Busing is not simple. But do we have the same ability for any student within our district to be able to get to and from the programs that can help them be able to get that little difference, right? Sometimes it's just a little bit of that one other voice that's giving you an explanation on algebra that makes it all click. And so that would be one of the first things I would look at is the access points, and have we removed the barriers for all different students to be able to get to the programs that we have put in place and funded.
Why do you think it's important to address equity and inclusion issues as a board member? And what are some ways you have or might do that?
So the importance of it is, I think, one of the strongest things that we have at Kent School District is the diversity within our district. We are educating students to move into a workforce that is continuing to be more and more diverse, and being able to tolerate is the wrong word. You want to celebrate the diversity that we have in our district. So equity, to me, is a point of celebration of being able to make sure that we have the voices of the many different aspects of our community heard, and making sure that we're meeting those needs. As a board member, because your job is to be able to set the goals and the policies based on the community values and obviously the law. Our community celebrates the diversity that we have, and so that needs to be reflected within our school district. And so as a school board member, when you're representing your community, those just go hand in hand. And I believe there was a second part to your question that I think I might have missed, other than why.
What are some ways you have or might do that?
Thank you. So as part of my ongoing education, I believe that being curious is a good thing. One of the programs that I have been able to seek out is Leadership Tomorrow, talking about the 7 elements of a healthy community, and the ribbon of racial equity throughout the entire program. It's a year-long program, and something that I learned a lot from and continue to do as I have been chosen onto the board of that. That has gone into my job, and then also just into my daily life of how do you look at things differently? How do you try to invite different aspects? And it's not just race, it's not just gender, it's sexual orientation, backgrounds, education level. How do you get all of those voices in to help make those choices? And those are the things that, as an organization that I represent and I'm proud to be part of, we're trying to make a difference in how we do things and question even things from hiring to promotions and job descriptions. And all of these things need to be questioned and relooked at to make sure that equity is central and as part of those decisions going forward.
Okay, question number 7. What aspects of racial equity and equity in education do you think you have to learn more about? And how would you go about doing it?
Well, I'm going to be humble and say, man, there's so much that I know that I don't even know. And I'm okay with that because hopefully I'm a lifelong learner, and I hope that that's what we aspire in everybody. Leadership Tomorrow was a big step for me personally in that program of stepping out and saying, I don't know it all, but I'm really going to ask people who know some more than I do. And that started my journey of kind of realizing those edges of my knowledge and just how much I needed to expand those out. And so racial equity within our district, I am encouraged by some of the things I've seen, seeing the graduation rates of our Hispanic students continuing to rise, some of our most impacted students, that we're doing a good job, but I know that I need to find out more about how we can do better. And how would I do that? Well, you ask. And you listen, and even more than that, I think you open yourself to be willing to change your mind, and that's served me well in learning a lot of different things I knew nothing about, and that's why I look forward to doing more with this.
What interest or personal qualities will you bring to this position, and how will they enrich the current board?
I have a deep love of financial education, and I can tell you something that I really love to do is through kind of the extracurricular of my job, is we've been able to go into schools and specifically with juniors and seniors and help them learn about what it is to budget. And can I tell you how important that is? And even we've even done it with some of the parents in kind of a different setting where you have parents saying, I didn't know how to do this. And what I also saw was students saying, my parents don't know how to do this, and I'm a wage earner for my family, and my check makes a big difference in my family, and I want to go home and give these skills to my parents too. And it is such a huge, huge thing. And so financial education is something that I'm passionate about and would really like to be able to bring that in. And I think we would all do really well with some learning about how to balance a budget.
All right, Megan, we're on to question number 9. What is your approach to dealing with discussions about potentially difficult topics, such as race, religion, politics, or sexual orientation? And please provide a specific example.
Sure. I guess just acknowledging that sometimes things are uncomfortable. And in life, this is, as a parent of kids, and, just even talking with spouses and friends, you learn the most when you're a little uncomfortable. And so if you're willing to go into a situation and just assume the best, know that people are really all just trying to do their best every day. And being willing to listen, hear people, and also know that just because you've always done something doesn't mean it's always the way that it should be done or it's the right way. A specific example I would give is we were leading a discussion in the workplace about Columbus Day changing to Indigenous Peoples Day. And it brought up a lot of emotions. And we had people from both sides of the fence, if you want to call it, and then kind of some people who didn't even think it pertained to them. And one was just making sure that everybody knew that everybody's voice was important and that it does impact everybody. And so being able to start the conversation of why people were passionate about it, why people weren't passionate about it, and being able to bring that conversation to a place of common understanding and also of respect, of just knowing that we all come from different places and that's okay and celebrated, and that in the end we're also going to all get along and we're going to figure out how to do that and we're going to support each other through it, and that the conversation doesn't just stop there, that it continues to go and it continues to evolve. And I would just say my transparency is part of helping bring that along.
Thank you. How would you help the board connect with individuals and organizations to benefit the district's students?
Could you repeat that question one more time?
Yes. How would you help the board connect with individuals and organizations to benefit the district's students?
Sure. Again, I think that we have a lot of resources, and I think Kent School District's actually done a good job about this, of reaching out to different community and faith-based organizations for partnering with our schools. And I think as we continue to listen to the voices of our community and the organizations that they're part of and passionate about, and bringing those forward as a representative of the community, would be something that I do well. You know Lincoln Logs? Or they're not Lincoln Logs, they're the different pieces that have all different colors. I always like to think of myself as the one in the middle. It's kind of an ugly little piece that is round with a bunch of holes. And all it is really a connector for everything else that's really colorful and fun. And I like to be that connector. And so when I think of myself, that's really what I try to do, is how do you connect all the really fun, interesting pieces? And so that's what I hope to bring to the board, is being that connector of, hey, you have a need, you have something that you can do about it, let's get you two together. And that's what I've tried to do in my career and what I try to do in my personal life. And that's a skill that I hope to bring to the board too, is being that person who sees the connections, asks the questions. Hey, where did you get that information from? Who did you work with to get that? And then being able to further connect people along the line.
Great. Question number 11.
Yes.
Describe a time when you needed to work collaboratively with someone that did not share the same ideas as you. Describe the situation, the action you took, the outcome, and what you learned.
Okay.
I can repeat if you want.
I'm going to have you repeat that just because I want a little extra time to think about this one too.
Right.
Okay.
Describe a time when you needed to work collaboratively with someone that did not share the same ideas as you? Describe the situation, the action you took, the outcome, and what you learned.
Sure. It's funny, sometimes choosing one situation where you're working with people who have different ideas of you is hard, because it's what we do every day, right? Is that we all come with it in our different ideas. I will talk about a work situation that I had over resources that we had within 2 different departments. I'll keep it pretty general on that one. The situation is that we both felt like we had the need, and we had one human, one body that needed to do the body of work that we both felt like that we had the need for. And so we had a limited resources, and we weren't going to get more. So how do you work with that, right? And I think that the first thing is acknowledging that both people had really, it was important. The work was important on both sides, and that wasn't going to change, and that we also knew that there wasn't a desire to escalate this. We wanted to figure this out amongst ourselves, and that was important to both of us. We also knew that we cared about the relationship, because relationships matter. And when we left that situation, we were still going to be colleagues, and we were still going to have lunch together, and we were still going to need to make sure that we could continue our relationship. So the action that we had is we really broke down the work and what our priorities were, and what the priorities of the organization were, and what it was going to mean to each one of us. The outcome is that we ended up being able to, and this was great, find ways that we were able to save on some FTE through some automation that they were able to give us that we didn't even know was possible. And we were able to find ways that we could be able to reduce some of the ask that we were needing, and be able to share the resource that we had. And it ended up making for more efficiency, and being able to continue to keep costs at a more reasonable level that we weren't going to be able to get any more of. What I learned from that is, I guess, the strengthening of the idea of that we continue to learn more the more you ask. Ask a lot of questions. Respect the person that you're working with, and just know that that a good solution is always is available when both sides are able to respect the other, and knowing that what they're asking for is also reasonable. And I think the most important thing at the end is the relationship. It all comes back down to the people in the end, and the relationship, and how do you continue to foster that and make that the priority, and knowing that going forward is that you're going to be working together.
Okay, can you define what you consider to be the role of a board member within the community?
Sure. So, so the role of a board member has a lot of different aspects, but what I would say is you're representing the community that you have, and that's why I am in particular really excited to be able to represent District 2 and then the larger community of the Kent School District. There are many different stakeholders, and knowing that you're representing a district and making the decisions and the budgetary and resource allocations that are able to fulfill the strategic objectives of the district as a whole. You're reflecting the community values in your decisions, and you are prioritizing them in a way that best aligns with the values of that district. And so I think it also comes down to really tangible things: listening, communicating, and being willing to know that you don't have all the best ideas, but you're willing to listen to a bunch of people that have some really good ideas too, and being able to put those together to really reflect the overall value of the community and the strategic objectives of the district as a whole for all students.
All right, Megan, we're on to question 13. Upon receiving notice for your interview, you are asked to review policy 1610, conflicts of interest, board and superintendent, board policy 1002, code of ethics, board policy 1005, the key functions of the board of directors, board resolution 1600, revised protocol guidelines, RCW 42-23-030, interest in contracts prohibited, exceptions, RCW 42.23.070, prohibited acts. Do you foresee a conflict based on your advanced review that would prevent you from serving in this role?
No.
The next question, describe the ideal relationship between the school board and the superintendent.
I would say one of open communication, one that there is a, I would never say that in the end, we're all people, and we come in with our different ideas, and that's great, and we need to have that. But in the end, one decision and one voice, right? I talk a lot about at work that we play for the name that's on the front of our jersey. Well, KSD is on the front of our jersey. And so in the end, you need to make sure that when coming from a lot of different ideas, that there is one way that we support both the strategic objectives and making sure that all of the policies and funding go along with that strategic objectives. And so while there will be differences of opinion, in the end, one voice needs to come out from the school district.
What is your understanding of a typical school district funding model, and how would you enhance it?
My understanding of a typical school district funding model and how would I enhance it. So there are funds from federal, there's funds from state, and then a lot of it is done through then local levies kind of make up the difference in between. We also get support from other outside areas, and I'm going to put a shout out to our PTAs out there, who, by the way, they do a heck of a lot. There's a lot of parents out there doing a lot of work for our kids.
Yes.
And so I don't know if you would call those non-traditional sources, because they've become pretty traditional now, and that we rely on those ones a lot. So how would I enhance those? Well, one,
Ms. Markle, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're giving every candidate the same amount of time, and your time is now up,
oh,
so
sorry.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
for coming.
Well, President Hamada, Superintendent Bella, and thank you, directors. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next interview starts at 6:20, so you got 5 minutes to do the 5-minute stretch.
Good evening, President Hamada, members of the board, and Superintendent Vela. I'd like to introduce to you candidate number 3, Mr. Mark Emelko.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mark. Good to see you. And again, we're very pleased when everybody steps up and wants to serve our district. It's such an important job. And thank you for being here. We're going to kind of go down the line and ask you a set of questions, and we have a set amount of time to get through them. So the first question I'm going to ask you, Mark, is...
Madam President,
Yes, Director.
the instruction.
Oh, you can repeat, ask for it.
Okay. I guess we're going to do some instructions that we can repeat the question, and that's about all we can do. We can't clarify.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, just for your, I'll repeat, do you need me to repeat the question? Okay, go ahead.
Your question.
Oh, you want me to read it?
No, you didn't ask the question.
Well, there wasn't a question yet,
Oh,
was there?
I'm sorry. Tell me about yourself.
No.
And why you want to be a board director.
I appreciate that, thank you. I just, well, I'll start with what may be easier. I just kind of felt like I really wanted to get involved. I mean, through the last couple of years or so with all the, everything that went on with COVID and stuff, I just, our daughter graduated Kent Ridge and she's over at Eastern Washington now, but I just saw my son really struggling, and I didn't know if there's another way to become involved. And just to quickly elaborate on that, I've got plus or minus 20 years of working in school districts. I'm currently an employee actually at Seattle Public Schools, but all my work has been on the owner side. I'm a project manager, so we contract the architects and the engineers that do our projects and all that stuff. So I've seen it from the owner side there, and I've got, across a couple of school districts, I've got about 20 plus years of experience there. I'm a registered architect, but so if there was another way I could be more involved, that's really kind of what I was looking to do.
Thank you. What are your experiences in the public K-12 system as either an employee, parent, or volunteer?
Well, there you go. I gave you a little bit of that. As a parent, yeah, well, and I gave you both of those, I guess. Yeah, so our daughter, actually, we're going to be packing her up and moving her back into apartments over at Eastern. She's starting her second year out there, and she graduated Kent Ridge. And our son is still at Kent Ridge right now. In fact, my daughter's picking him up from football practice. So as far as that aspect of parenting in K through 12, I'm there. And again, 20 plus years, 2 different school districts, working, and actually, I guess if you include my architectural career prior to then, also included some K through 12 work prior to that. But I mean, in that role, we get very involved with all the stakeholders and all, when we're going through a new design and that kind of thing for a new facility, or even if we're doing a remodel or an addition, just get very involved at times. I mean, I know that when we have change orders that hit a certain threshold, then our director also meets with one of the representatives from the board, and that director on the school board is the one that kind of handles facility stuff. But so I've seen it all from that aspect primarily.
Okay. How would your lived and professional experience impact and inform your approach to building a healthy and collaborative learning community as a board member in service of students, their families, and staff?
I think actually the work I do kind of informs some of that already. Thank you. Really, that's in our capacity as project managers and working in the design end of things. I mean, that's what we do. We engage often we're engaging students in designs. Frequently, I mean, almost always we're working with the principal and some of his staff at whatever facility the project happens to be taking place at. But if it's a larger project or something of a grander nature, I mean, a lot more people get involved, but it's something that I think I'm comfortable doing. You can tell me if I've done a bad job or not, but it's what we do. So I feel comfortable, at least as far as that's concerned, in that arena with engaging a whole bunch of stakeholders and really trying to achieve the best outcome for everyone, and that goes all the way down to the students. What works for the students in a facility, what works for the staff, what works for the owner as a school district, maintenance, and putting all that together and having, I guess, a final package to some extent.
What would you consider to be the challenges in public education today, and how would you prioritize these challenges?
The top three challenges are budgets, and budgets, I think. There's a little bit of, I'm dealing with it right now on a project. There's certainly a community aspect, and I think some of it's just having people involved. I know that in my work, it's actually, sometimes it's difficult getting a lot of staff involved because, everybody's busy, everybody's got schedules, and while the construction world may not necessarily fit in with what somebody's day-to-day responsibilities are, we're looking to have all those voices participate. That's how you make community. So I think that's probably, my personal experience has been that's probably the other challenge, is just to really step up the level of involvement, I guess. And I don't know that I don't have a solution. I don't have a magic bullet for it. I don't know that there's any one good way to get that done. And it's unfortunate because, really, everybody's voice should count. And I don't discount that when I'm in a meeting with a contractor and I've got some maintenance staff with me. I never know who's going to have the best solution, but somebody who's got that experience is certainly worth, engaging in the conversation. So that's just the engagement, maybe, is the right word.
Mark, we're on to question number 5. The Kent School District is focused on closing the achievement gap that exists between student groups such as special ed, ESL, income, and race. What are your thoughts and ideas on addressing the gaps?
I've seen some of it with my son, especially, like I said, these last 2 years, where it's been tough because I'll say involvement, just really being, and it goes back to being engaged, whether it's community engagement or staff engagement. There are things I know my kids don't listen to when I'm saying them, and when I see other people tell them the same thing, they listen better for whatever reason. So just that engagement and that encouragement, I can tell you specifically, when our son was at Northwood, there were a couple teachers, and even back at Ridgewood, there were a couple teachers, I'm going to get choked up, that really made a difference. It just seemed like he was more enthusiastic and responsive with those people, and making that connection, huge. Yes. And if everybody could do that on some level, whatever it takes to get to the students. And I think all that what I believe would lead to potentially reducing this achievement gap. It's really about making a connection and connecting with hopefully as many students as you can. And again, it's that community.
Thank you. Next question. Why do you think it's important to address equity and inclusion issues as a board member? And what are some ways you have or might do that?
Just saying it a second ago, to be honest, it's everybody having a place at the table. I don't know which voice, when I'm in my meetings, I don't know which voice is going to provide that best solution. I just had a couple of those phone calls today. We were talking about trying to solve an issue in an existing facility where we need to install new windows. How do you do that? Do I have my window guy come out? Do I have my brick mason come out? I don't know who's going to do it. Does a contractor come up with the best solution? And that goes all the way down to, if we transfer that to a classroom situation, it's going to be the same thing. It's everything counts. It's cliche to some extent, but really there aren't any stupid questions. If you don't understand, and I kind of hate this, and I don't know how we improve on this. And I don't know that every kid feels this, but so many times I'll tell my kids, hey, just ask, if you don't know, ask the question. How do we get students to a level, or everybody to a level, where they're comfortable enough to make that, ask that question. People talk about safe spaces, but it should be safe to ask that. This is where you're going to learn. And if you don't ask the question, you may not learn. You may understand it, but maybe you don't learn how that answer is the correct answer, how you get to that answer. So hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you.
Good. Question number 7. What aspects of racial equity and equity in education do you think you have to learn more about? And how would you go about doing it?
Wow, that's good. I'm not sure what I would need to learn more about. Personally, I kind of have a hard time with this one because I personally feel like the moment we put a label on somebody, whether you're trying to include them or not, you've already kind of singled them out. You've called that person out. And again, I was talking about getting in the community, but everyone kind of working together, and I don't care what. And you could be green. I don't care what color you are. People working together is how we get things done. How you have that community. If somebody's got a different opinion, that's great. And that too, including all that, and again, kind of going back to the asking a question, like I said, there shouldn't be a bad question. This should be a place where anybody can ask that stuff. And maybe that creates another conversation. I mean, I don't know. There could be one little thing that may not mean much to me, but to somebody else, that inspires them to either ask the next question or go on to something else, but I don't know what's inside that person. But yeah, if we could not label everybody, and I mean, we're all one family. I'll leave it there.
So what interests or personal qualities will you bring to this position, and how will they enrich the current board?
I don't know. I'm bringing you my 20 plus years of school district experience on the owner side. I actually, one of the things I thought about, I don't know if there's one of you that actually handles all the kind of like facilities related type stuff. I thought that'd be a great spot, just because of my background, and whatever else. I mean, bringing people together, and having all the stakeholders have a say or a part in things. I mean, that's what we do when we are laying out these projects for the month. I mean, there's some simple basic stuff that isn't really going to have a lot of conversation, like we're replacing windows or replacing a roof. But when we're trying to lay something out so that it works for the population, bringing all those people together is critical. And I feel like I'm pretty good at being open about that. And again, I thought that perhaps there'd be a really good place for me with respect to all the kind of like facilities and that kind of work. Thank you.
Right, Mark, we're on to question number 9. What is your approach to dealing with discussions about potentially difficult topics such as race, religion, politics, or sexual orientation? And please provide a specific example.
Well, I guess the first part's easier. I don't know if I have a good specific example. I can relate most of this to project work, but just that, I mean, we asked about it before. One of the questions asked about equity and inclusion, and it's letting, I mean, everybody having that place at a table that again, you don't really know who's going to have something to say or a point of view that may inspire someone or may get someone to look at things with a different perspective. One of the questions earlier was the lived experience. I mean, that's, you can't, there's no way you can't make that up. It is what it is. I mean, there's no way that you can take somebody's lived experience, and there's a logical understanding for that, but the way that person feels and what they've gone through, there's no substitute for that. As far as, as far as a specific experience, I'm stretching on this one. I work hard not to really label anybody and to be open to what other people have to say when we have these, in a design scenario, have these meetings. But just in life in general, I never know who, I guess as far as the inclusivity and equity goes, it's to include everybody. I don't know who's going to come up with what or again, the lived experience, I don't know what somebody's gone through. I mean, even if I could logically understand something, it's still not the same as getting it from that person. I mean, I don't know. I apologize. I don't have a really good specific example.
How would you help the board connect with individuals and organizations to benefit the district students?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I imagine we would do whatever it takes. I mean, my son's actively involved with, actually, they're on, with the scout troop in Renton here, and I guess that would be a good starting point. I've got some experience having done Habitat for Humanity work, possibly engaging with folks at our church. Just getting out. I don't know. I'm pretty good at going along if somebody says, hey, this is what we're going to be doing, and kind of getting on board and doing those kind of things. I mean, and probably the bulk of my community experience at this point is more or less whatever we do with the scout troop and you know, the fundraisers, that kind of thing, and get engaged there. Probably, I mean, I guess we're going to have some of those with football too, because I've seen some of that come through.
Okay. Describe a time when you needed to work collaboratively with someone that did not share the same ideas as you. Describe the situation, the action you took, the outcome, and what you learned.
I'm working on the specific event or activity. What I will say is, I don't know, I have a hard time with this because I don't usually look at it that way. I can tell you honestly that, I mean, when we have a job to do, we have a job to do. It doesn't really matter who that person is. They may have other opinions on things that, you know, we may disagree a lot. We may disagree on 90% of life. But if we're working together to get something done, we're working together to get something done. There shouldn't be too much about it. And you know, I think we've all seen it happen, and it's not necessarily, when something needs to get done, it's not necessarily a place for personal opinions. More or less, the job needs to get done, and that's pretty much it. Shoot. I don't know, maybe can we come back to that? I was gonna, I don't, I try not to let that get in the way of getting things done, so it usually doesn't matter to me. And sometimes I can't tell you a specific example off the top of my head, but I know there have been times I've been surprised when somebody that I didn't expect to behave a certain way or collaborate in a certain manner did. And that's always been a pleasant surprise. I don't have anything specific right now, I'm sorry.
Define what you consider to be the role of a board member within the community.
You know, I started reading through all that extra material that got emailed to me. And it's a lot more than I had thought, but really, I don't know if this is a good summary. I want to say that we're cheerleaders for the community. I mean, and just as a parent, it's something I want, but really we want great outcomes. I feel strongly about a level of responsibility and being a good steward with whatever's given to me. So whether that's financial or some kind of resource or a group that I'm working with, I always I personally feel better when the people that I've worked with or whatever project we're working on or we're doing, I feel like I've done a good job, or from a financial standpoint, we've gotten the most out of our dollar for whatever we're doing. And really to be just good stewards of our resources, whether they're financial or human capital, I guess human resources, where it's students in the community or staff or teachers. And really, again, going back to the community, basically being like a bridge, or a liaison sounds a little more businessy, but really being that bridge that, if somebody has a voice and has something to say, making sure it's carried on, or if there's a point to be made to help make sure that that's not lost.
Thank you.
All right, Mark, we're on to question number 13. Upon receiving notice for your interview, you were asked to review Board Policy 1610, Conflicts of Interest, Board and Superintendent, Board Policy 1002, Code of Ethics, Board Policy 1005, the key functions of the Board Director, Board Resolution 1600, revised protocol guidelines, RCW 42.23.030, interest in contracts prohibited exceptions, RCW 42.23.070, prohibitive acts. Do you foresee a conflict based on your advanced review that would prevent you from serving in this role?
Overall, no. There was one thing that I saw in there that and you can love it or hate it for me, but the one thing I saw that I had a tough time with is, I would hope that we would all come to some kind of agreement, and I know that the board needs to work together. I think there was one, I can't remember the number, but if I strongly believe in something, I think it basically said something to the effect that, whatever the board agrees to, when a vote's taken, that everybody kind of goes along and supports it. And I think I would support it, but I would still have it. If it was something I strongly didn't believe in, I'd have a hard time with it. Just being honest there, sorry. It was in one of those attachments. I actually started going deeper. I started going and clicking on other links, but no, other than that, I don't have any issues. I mean, I'll probably, I'm going to tell you, I'll probably be honest to a fault. I have a hard time when there's not integrity, and you're going to get that from me for sure. I mean, 100+%. I like to, even if it takes me a little longer than expected sometimes, believe that I'll do what I tell you I'm going to do. But again, I mean, a lot of it, I'm sure there's behind the scenes that involves a lot of collaboration and conversation and expressing of opinions to get to a final point. So I look forward to that. I mean, again, I never know what somebody else's opinion is going to be, or if somebody explains something a certain way, going back to the lived experience question, I don't know what somebody's gone through that I haven't.
The next question, describe the ideal relationship between the school board and the superintendent.
I guess, this may be oversimplified, but really the way I see that is that the school board, I mean, kind of like elected officials, really should be representing our community. And most of the time, there might be exception, but most of the time I would imagine that the school board would provide recommendation to the superintendent, and whether there's some deliberation or conversation about that or how we got to it. But again, that's that openness and the communication and community that would hopefully be there. But once there was a suggestion made or direction, then I would imagine that the superintendent would take into consideration all the comments or details provided, and then whatever decision would potentially execute that. that's it. But I really see the school board as kind of representing the community. I mean, our areas are all for where we live.
Okay. What is your understanding of a typical school district funding model, and how would you enhance it?
Oh, shoot. I know it's complicated. I know there's the really oversimplified version, I suppose, would be that, there's per student funding, and then potentially there's funding that is voted on and approved, and then, there's levies and that kind of thing. The only thing, I don't know that I necessarily have a huge issue with the funding model. The one thing that I would really, probably more than anything, would like to see, and we do this at home in our family for our monthly budget, is to not be over budget. That's all. I have a tough time with that on some of my projects where we run into things that completely were unexpected, and I get it. And hopefully at that point, there'd be some funds set aside for if comes. Other than that, to be, and not just financially, but just to be good stewards of all the resources we've been given.
Okay. Board meetings occur on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month, with work sessions on alternate Wednesdays. Additionally, the board meets with the superintendent for regular board superintendent governance meetings, and which may require meetings on additional evenings. There are also book studies, research, and community events, including graduations throughout the year. Is there anything that would prevent you from participating in these meetings and activities, and/or what types of supports would you need to be successful in this role?
Just enough advance notice to get it on the calendar. I think that's it. We're running a little tight on this one, but the job's whatever the job is. I mean, as far as the general commitments, I don't have any. I don't foresee anything that would hold me back from making those obligations and commitments. Yeah, just knowing about things ahead of time usually helps.
All right, Mark, we have 3 minutes till 6:50. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
No, I don't think that I have. I mean, I don't think I have much more to tell you that will make a dramatic impact at this point. I feel that I've got this experience from the owner's side, working for the school districts that still work for, one of them, but where I've been on the owner's side, where we have these funding issues to deal with. We have to bring people together, and we have to take all sorts of input to make the work we do successful, and again, be financially responsible. And I would hope that all, as you're reviewing things, is a strong contributing factor to having me be a part of the team. And then I'm open to contributing whatever really is required. I mean, you kind of step in, and there are things that come up that nobody expected. There are things like regular meetings that everybody's on the same page with, but whatever it takes.
All right, Mark, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're now at 6:49. One of the things that you're not aware of, so I'm going to tell the audience, is that we had all our candidates kind of check in 20 minutes before the interview. And again, we have kind of a little different situation with our last candidate, Ms. Jo Woods. She's going to come in on virtual or Zoom, and we're going to kind of keep check on that. She was supposed to start at 6:55, and we're going to give her a little while to see what's going to happen with that. There is the potential that she may not be able to check in. So,
President Hamada, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, yes, as you mentioned just now, President Hamada, Ms. Woods is scheduled to have her interview begin at 6:55. At this time, I do not see that she has logged into the Zoom, but I will keep my eye on it, and I will keep you posted.
Thank you very much. So stay tuned, tick, tick. in-house and online informed. Miss Jo Wood's interview was to start at 6:55. We're going to give her every chance for 10 minutes to still sign on, and then at 10 minutes, we are going to give up on the connection that we're trying to get. Just so you're aware, trying to be fair to everybody. All right, it is 7:05, and do you want to give us an update, Ms. Santelli?
Yes, thank you, President Hamada, members of the board, and Superintendent Vela. At this time, at 7:05, we have not heard from candidate number 4, Ms. Woods.
Right, and I mean, we're kind of 10 minutes into her time. Even if she would log on now, it wouldn't give her a fair chance to fulfill her interview, so we're going to move on. So at this time, it is 7:05. I will ask for a motion to recess into executive session for approximately 30 minutes. The executive session will begin at 7:30, as was posted. The purpose of this executive session is to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant. I'll entertain a motion.
We require a motion for that?
Oh, okay.
All right, then
and then out. Yeah.
I move to adopt such a schedule.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of going into executive session for approximately 30 minutes signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by raising your right hand and saying nay. Abstentions, the motion carries.
Do we take these in?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're on to 4.0. I'm going to call the special meeting to order, and we're returning this meeting to open session following the executive session to publicly discuss the candidates' qualifications. The board will take action and announce the successful candidate. We're on to 5.0, discussion and approval. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we appoint the District 2 finalist, review and appoint.
You need a name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Megan Markle.
Second.
Okay, has been moved and seconded to appoint Megan Margell. Discussion.
I'm just very thankful we had a lot of candidates apply for the position. I'm happy we were able to interview 3. I am disappointed we didn't get to hear from Ms. Woods. I really liked what she had to say, would have loved to hear from her too. But I think that Ms. Margell is going to be a great candidate, and looking forward to working with her.
Yeah. And just to add that, I mean, with the current environment, I'm really thankful that we have community members that will step up and appreciate that, because I can be honest and tell you, if I was that person, I would have said, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to take a pass. But I really appreciate you stepping up and coming, and I'm sure you're gonna correct us how to pronounce your last name. We're butchering it, I know, but I apologize. But Margell, thank you. And thank you.
I also want to thank all the people that fulfilled putting in the applications and the paperwork with that, and especially want to thank the candidates that in fact went through this particular process, as it was consuming in many different ways because of the requirements to prepare, which is what it came down to. But I thought that Megan did an excellent job of preparing. She clearly is involved with the education of her kids and therefore has a stake in the district, and I'm sure she'll do a fine job representing the households of District 2.
And I just want to thank everybody that came tonight. Clearly, we have people that really care about our community.
Yes.
Each candidate that spoke tonight, and a lot of them that filled out their applications, have excellent qualities. I hope you'll still, all of you will still be involved in the school district, because honestly, we need a lot more of that, and we need to hear from everybody. And try to listen to everybody. It's not always an easy game. All right, is there any further discussion? I'm going to restate the motion that has been moved and seconded to appoint for our final appointment for District Number 2, Megan Markle. And all those in favor signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by raising your right hand and saying nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. And I'd like to congratulate the new board director and say Megan Markle will take the oath of office on September 14th, 2022, our regular board meeting. I'd also like to make note that District Number 2, guess what, will be up for election in November of 2023. So there's a lot going on here. And absolutely, I think that concludes our business of the night. And at 8:04, we are adjourned.